Hey everyone, I'm Jack Harvey, and you're listening to the DIVEBOMB IndyCar Podcast.
Welcome back to DIVEBOMB IndyCar Podcast, where we have another very special guest on the show, Fox Sports pit reporter, as well as the driver number 24, driver rode over Cusick Motorsports car, and Mr. Hollywood himself, Jack Harvey. Welcome to the show, Jack. How are you doing?
They're doing good, mate. I'm actually pretty impressed with how you're able to get that out all in one go. That was pretty good.
You get podcast practice doing this. So.
I guess.
Yes, and for the listeners, it's always great to have somebody who uses pavement instead of sidewalk, pronounces tomato correctly, all these important things to our podcast. But we'll go back at the start of the year, Jack, when you obviously announced to be part of the Fox Sports team as they obviously joined the series. So could you just give us some background about sort of how that deal came around and sort of how long were you trying to push to get into the broadcasting side of things?
I mean, it's a pretty easy thing to say. I mean, really, I didn't know what this year was going to look like. You know, that's the easiest thing to say. And I just wanted to have as many options as you could possibly have. And then I actually met, the first time I met anybody at Fox was Nashville season finale last year. And at that point, it was really more just about an introduction. It wasn't about, hey, you know, like, let's definitely do something. It was more so, hey, if depending on what happens and, you know, all these other if, buts and maybes kind of scenario happen or don't happen, like I would just, you know, love the opportunity to talk to you guys. And if it makes sense, let's do it. And I didn't think that we would probably be racing full time, in all fairness. We were targeting the 500. I told them that. And then kind of once we got the 500 secured, it was kind of then a case of, okay, well, let's really try and push this and shimmy it along. I let them know that I was interested from the get-go. You know, like I didn't try and be coy with them. I kind of laid all the cards on the table and just said, you know, this is what I'd like to do if it happens. So on my first meeting, I met Pam Miller, Lindsay Mandia, and then, you know, slowly just started to meet more and more people. And it wasn't, so I got offered the job officially the week before St. Pete, and then kind of didn't hear anything else that week. So I actually went into St. Pete without like any training, any formal training, any informal training. It was very much just learn on the fly. And although I've been on, you know, podcasts and I've been interviewed, you know, more times than I can even remember on pit lane or just kind of around the track and around the paddock and whatnot, it's very different suddenly when you're then the one doing that and trying to get the flow. And sometimes one of the things I thought has been hard so far is someone will give you a great answer and you want to do the follow-up, but you can't. And I think that's the difference between, you know, on live in a super short time frame kind of window versus when, you know, on a podcast you've got time. You know, sometimes could just let the conversation flow wherever. And I'm sure you guys have it where you have the, you know, list of things you want to talk about, and at the end of it, maybe you don't get through half of it, but it's still been a great conversation. And I think that's what I've been trying to do, is turn more of these into like conversation opposed to just straight interviews.
Why did it appeal to you, this broadcast side of things? Was it something you always thought when you were driving? And I guess as you're being interviewed by Kevin or whoever on pit lane, actually, that's something I'd really like to do. What was the kind of big appeal of that for you?
I'm not sure, honestly. I think it more so was just that I love IndyCar racing. I thought I would be good at it. I can turn a phrase and I can talk to people. And really, I just wanted to stay a part of the IndyCar community, and whether that's in the paddock, you know, driving or being a reporter. Obviously my ambitions are to end up in the booth. You know, I haven't made that a secret either. Like, I want to be one of the main commentators, and I think more so from the commentating side is where the big interest comes. You know, from everything that I've watched and listened in Formula One my whole life, and also then since I've been in IndyCar, and you know, I already knew Will, but becoming like, you know, even bigger and better mates with him has been really fun. And, you know, love Townsend, love James. I think Fox have assembled a really strong crew, and doing the Indy Next broadcast with Kevin, you know, and Georgia. I mean, it's just a really good time. So I don't know if I could turn around and be like, oh yeah, this was like what I had my heart like set on since I was a kid. Like, I mean, look, at the end of the day, I wanted to race, and we're still trying to find ways to be able to do that. So it's not a case of, no more racing, only do broadcasting. It's hopefully a scenario where we can thread the needle and do a little bit of both. Ultimately, it just is my love of sports and IndyCar racing, and I just wanted to stay a part of that.
I know it's been a long season since St. Pete, but I just wanted to drill into what you were saying about you kind of went in pretty blind with no preparation. So what sort of baptism of fire was that first weekend? What were your first impressions when you got going in St. Pete?
Well, very much baptism in fire. I remember just thinking, like, what have I signed on for? Truthfully, because there were so many things happening. Like 2 minutes before, I actually didn't even know until I got to St. Pete that I was doing the Indy Next broadcasting like with Kevin. That hadn't even really been discussed. It had been like floated once as something like, would you be interested in it? And I said, yeah, I'll do whatever you want. And then first time I had the battery pack on was like 2 minutes before practice one at St. Pete. And it's so, when I watch them back now, it's like a two-sided coin, because there's a moment where I watch it and I'm just like, oh, that is like not great. And I feel like I don't think it was bad, but I think I've made a lot of progress. And the same side, when I know like how little prep I had, how nervous I was, the fact that I still just like did it, actually I was like, okay, like, we can work with that. So there was an element of just being proud of it as well. So a little bit of balance. I think I've made good progress, this year, honestly, on the whole. And again, that's really just been more so watching the races back and kind of just doing that very, racing drive, a very methodical kind of what was good, what was bad, how would I have done it better next time, what would I do next time, how do I change my prep now, to do that. So it's just been a lot of, same kind of style of trying to improve as what I would do if I was in the car, honestly.
So you've obviously seen the television work as a driver from that perspective. So you obviously had some familiarity, but going into the television side of things and being the other side of the microphone, what surprised you maybe about that? Was there anything which you stood out? Well, okay, I wasn't expecting that being this side of the microphone.
Probably just how many people actually go into making a great broadcast. When you're watching, even on TV now, you'll see, the lads in the booth, you'll see me, Kevin, Georgia on pit lane, and maybe if you're watching some other shows, you'll see like a few of the producers, the director, etc. But actually, just the amount of people that actually have to come together to be able to put out what is a good broadcast was way more than probably what I had ever expected or kind of even realized. So that's probably been the first big thing. I would say one of the things that's been pretty eye-opening for me from a driver's stance is, obviously I've got mates in the paddock that I want to see do well, but how when I'm not actually in the race, I don't care about the outcome. Like you want the excitement, like you want it to rain mid-race, and you want all these kind of wild things to happen. So one, that we've always got something good to talk about, but also that it does make it fun for the fans. However, sometimes when you're in those races, you don't want the yellow, you don't want the rain, and how stressed you can get on some of those things. So I think that pivot is so rapid from going from I'm stressed about specifically the race to I'm not stressed. Like obviously I'm like under pressure because I want to do a good show and everything, but suddenly just being like a little removed from it has been kind of an interesting thing. And then especially at Indy, I was kind of zoned out of the racing in terms of not who was doing what, but like I really didn't mind who was winning the races. So then suddenly doing the 500 again and being like the opposite of that, being like super back in the zone, didn't want rain, didn't want anything crazy happening. So that swing is pretty strong.
And I think one of the things that people don't appreciate a lot of the time with TV, you have loads of voices in your ears as well, don't you? So like, what's it been like getting used to that element of it?
That has been the single hardest thing for me. And I had a call on Friday where I was explaining this to someone as well. When you're driving, it's a lot of just one-way information, from your spotter, to the team. Your strategist might be shouting fuel numbers at you. And honestly, a lot of the time, it doesn't really require a reply. It's just info that you're absorbing. and then immediately making small adjustments on. Sometimes they'll ask you, how's the car? And, when you get to the straight or something, you'll open up the mic and you'll just, blurt out whatever the balance is, or maybe you've got a question and stuff like that. But it's very difficult when I'm having a conversation with you guys and then you would have a producer in your ear at the same time when you might be giving me a great answer. He might be like, hey, the send now, send it to Kevin next, or the booth next, or hey, something's changed, 2 questions. And the time that it's taken him to say that, you might have dropped a nugget. So it's almost like going into a restaurant, focused on the person that you're there with, but still being able to listen 100% to the other conversations that are happening around you. And it's very hard to have to hear 2 pieces of information, process both of them. So me and my producer, Eric, who is absolutely awesome, we have a bit of a strategy now where he tells me early in someone's reply where I'm sending the conversation to once we've finished. Because if he waits too long to say that, sometimes an answer might be really good and might lead to a very organic question. But if I don't ask it because I wasn't paying attention, because I was listening to him, you miss it. And then when you watch it back, you're like, that felt a little bit weird. So that has been the hardest thing. It's still something I'm still getting used to be honest. And I would say, although the career progression I'd like to be on, obviously I want to drive as much as I can for as long as I can, doing whatever I can. But from the Fox perspective, being in the booth is where I want to be. However, I'm happy that I'm getting to do some of the pit lane reporting to be able to learn some of these things, so that if the opportunity to come in the booth arises, you just nail it, because that would be really hard otherwise.
I guess when you look back to yourself at St. Pete, if you've seen clips and stuff, and those first few races, when you look at yourself as you are now in this role, what are the kind of big lessons you've learned, or the big things that you feel like you've kind of improved on in this new role throughout the year?
I think not looking as nervous probably was the first big thing that I've been able to work on. I don't know, man. I understand it from both sides, and I think that's what makes me good at least, have potential to do this job anyway. Because I get when the teams don't want to be bothered, when they don't mind being bothered, and sometimes when you just got to do it anyway because it's part of the job. So I get that from the driver's side, the strategist side, team owner's side. So I think I've always been able to thread that needle okay. I think purely it's just having the reps to be able to be confident in delivery, like what's a short amount of time to speak, what's a long amount of time to speak, what is good storytelling, what is valuable input, what is just kind of, nothingy kind of input. So, I mean, obviously there's a little bit of a balance of everything there. And I think just the more reps I've been getting, I think just the better I've been at being able to sift through, some of that quickly and just being like, okay, well, that's what I need there. That's what I need here. And this is how I want to do that, etc. So I don't know if there's like one specific thing. I probably don't put myself under quite that much pressure. And I had a lot of notes going into like St. Pete and Barber about all the drivers, and I still have them, and I still like spend a lot of time going through them. But I think before I'd go into the weekend and I'd know almost like what I wanted to talk about before the weekend started, which is fine for practice 1. But then obviously you don't know what's going to happen the rest of it. So then being fluid, but also just trusting myself that, I understand what's going on to be able just to deliver that info in a good way.
And you mentioned kind of your notes and stuff. What sort of prep are you doing every week? And I guess how are you balancing that with stuff like, I don't know, staying in the gym and preparing that way in case you get another driving opportunity as well?
I mean, the balance of my life is easy. I've always been okay with that. Just a bit of time management. So it just takes a little planning in a day. So I've never particularly struggled with balancing time that way. So I've been in the gym. I got back from the gym, about an hour ago. So you never know what's around the corner, no pun intended on that. But I have been staying ready in case something pops up and I'm needed from a driving perspective. That being said, I enjoy what I'm doing now. So it would also have to be the right opportunity to pivot back into, into racing and whatnot. So yeah, I think that the time management of it isn't too bad at all, actually.
So you've obviously done the pit reporting for the IndyCar side of things, but we've seen you in the booth alongside Kevin Lee for all the Indy Next races this year. So what have those two different roles been like, and what sort of the key differences you find versus being on pit road and being in the commentary booth itself?
Well, I think when you're in the actual booth commenting on a race, it's the ability to keep it a little bit broad, to be able to explain what's going on, but in a way that anybody can just tune in and just know what's happening. And one thing that I think Fox have been really good at is reminding us that for people who are watching practice one across a weekend, that's probably a pretty dedicated fan, right? Let's just be honest. The people who are watching the race, it might be that you just happen to flick on it, and at that point, you don't know, everyone's stats this year. You don't know everybody's history this year. Who's been, at their potential, who's been at their potential and had bad luck. You don't know a lot of these things. So keeping it broad, I think in the booth has kind of been the message. So in that moment, it's just a lot of, what do you see? How can you report on it in a good way? Kevin is awesome in the booth. He's such a good storyteller. I think his cadence for delivery is really good as well. So I've been enjoying getting to work with him and learn from him. And then in pit lane, really, it's more so trying to stay on top of, what's happening in the race in the section that I'm covering. Is someone doing a crazy strategy? Have they got a lot of tires left? Is their strategist going to talk to us? Like, ultimately, at that point, how can I contribute something into the broadcast that is meaningful, that you would watch and go, oh, that's really cool. We can watch out for that in 20 laps. And I think I felt like from a strategy perspective this year, Road America was kind of a good one, because it didn't seem like Pelot would be able to make the fuel. And then when I went and spoke to them and was listening on the scanner, I was like, he's going to make it. Like, there isn't like much of a doubt here. Like, he's making this race.
One of the coolest things I think Fox have done for their broadcast, especially in the next side of things, is you having sort of a guest commentator each week. It could be a driver, it could be a team principal, strategist, whoever. So of all these people you've had alongside you in the booth, do you have a favourite? Anyone you think might have a future career in commentary?
Honestly, man, I think everyone's been pretty good. I'd be curious to hear like your thoughts more so on that. I think I still, at the end of a race, whether it's Next or IndyCar, I still have to ask other people like how they think it went. Like, I don't always have I don't have enough experience yet to know like when I've totally nailed it, when I've like, had a really great show versus when I've had like an okay one. And because of that, I always feel harsh judging other people because of it. Cause like, I don't even know what I'm doing half the time, let alone what someone else is doing. So, I mean, who have you guys enjoyed on there?
I think Ryan's absolutely nailed it, because he was in the booth for one of the practice sessions at Indy. I think he was in the booth when McLaughlin had his crash actually in practice. But then he's done a couple of Indy Next races, hasn't he? So I think he's been a pretty good fit, I thought.
Yes, Santino Ferrucci's one that springs to mind. He was there for the Indy GP. I thought he actually was quite a natural, actually, pretty quickly.
Yeah, I'm biased to Ryan because we're good mates. We were teammates, and I think he does a good job for sure. And actually, I know a lot of these people. Santino is probably the guy that I would say surprised me the most. I thought that his insight was good, his cadence was good, his flow, his conversation, his insights were really good. And that's not a dig to say that I wasn't expecting it. He was just the guy that surprised me the most. I really enjoyed that Indy GP with him.
Yeah, that's interesting. I guess latching off that a bit, what has the sort of camaraderie been like in the Fox team? Obviously, you said you've kind of grown that relationship with Will, and you've got to work closely with Kevin, Georgia, who I guess you've been used to being spoken to by them as a driver. So just working within that team, what's that been like? I know we've seen obviously all the nicknames and everything, and quite a lot of
I got a few of them
around
now.
that.
Yeah. Well, I mean, camaraderie is probably the best word. Like, it's such a good group of people. Obviously I've raced with James for years, been teammates, two different occasions at two different teams. but I got to see a completely different side to him as well, which has been awesome. I knew Will from when he was doing some commentary on, GP3. It wasn't even F3 at the time that I did it. It was still GP3. So it kind of knew James probably the best out of everybody. Knew Will through just racing experiences, really. But obviously spent a lot of time chatting with Kevin, Georgia. Townsend probably was the guy that I knew the least going into this, and everyone just gets along so well. It's such a fun group, and everybody has been so helpful to me in different ways, and it's mostly because everyone brings something different. But I mean, me and Townsend have even got to the point which I never thought we'd get to, which is cool, mostly because I didn't know he knew how to do it. But like, we'll share Instagram reels with each other now about goofy things. The last one I got was this Star Wars painting that he sent me, and it's such a fun weekend, that I really look forward to them. And I know the nicknames have been, coming left and right, truthfully, but it's been great. Everybody really, it feels like right now between all of us, we bring quite a lot to the table, and it doesn't feel, at least now, I'm not the person who really should answer this, but it doesn't feel like there's any big obvious gaps that need filling, because everybody brings like a different aspect to the broadcast. So I think it's a really great team, and actually from a production side, all of our producers, our director, everyone's been like so great to work with. It's just a really, really strong team.
I think it's important to find out. We've obviously mentioned all these nicknames you've got. You've had Monterey Jack last time out, Hollywood Harvey, the Muffin Man. You've had so many. Do you have a favourite?
Well, so I made a fatal mistake of saying I wasn't keen on Hollywood Harvey, mostly because, well, one, I'd never been to Hollywood until recently. And then I live in do you guys know where Lincoln is?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
So my parents live in a village outside of Lincoln, so it's not even like living in the city. My family are farmers growing up, so suddenly ending up with the nickname Hollywood just felt a bit weird. That means, and I think that was more so because I didn't want people to think that like I had instigated this and like now thought I was above my station or whatever. So that was why I was a little bit uneasy on Hollywood to start with, but then it caught on pretty quick. Which, I mean, at some point, man, you just got to go with it, right? So I've learned now just to embrace that, like whatever. It kind of is what it is at this point. I kind of don't mind it anymore. I did actually have like a little bit of a serious chat with Will and was like, look, like, is this something I'm going to regret? Like, it feels like it's not me. It just feels like weird. And he's like, you're thinking too heavy on it. Like, everyone knows that you're a pretty humble guy and, you're super normal. That's what makes it funnier. So actually after that, I felt generally a bit better, which was good. And then, I mean, Ryan's kids called me the Muffin Man just because he had a chocolate muffin and it was all over his face after one of the practice days. And I'm just like, dude, what is going on like with this? And I was like, anyway, go get me a muffin. Like, you've done nothing all day. Like, I've actually been busy today. And then suddenly, like, Muffin Man started. And then, anyway, after one of the days, I went and knocked on his RV and they were watching Pirates of the Caribbean. And I was like, you could call me Captain Jack or whatever. And then it turned into, like, Captain Muffin or something like that. And I was like, oh, my God, like, this is going the wrong way. But I think Hinch has got a pretty good nickname from Ryan's kids too. I can't remember what it is, but Ryan told me it could get worse. And in fact, James's, I think, is worse. Monterey Jack I guess it kind of works. It's a cheese, I guess. I don't know, man. I try not to draw attention to it, if I'm honest.
Oh, God, we'll have to do some journalism and find out what Hinches is.
Yeah.
I guess pivoting a little away from the Fox stuff, on a racing side, you obviously decided to put full-time competition behind you for this season. How hard a decision was that for you to make, or did it kind of just happen that way, if that's how the cards fell?
Well, I think one thing to remember that I don't make that decision. That decision kind of gets made for you. I knew we didn't have the funding that we would need to go full time. I'm very lucky with my sponsors now at Invest. that they were able to still help out and do the Indy 500. That was important to them. It was important to me. So, it's not like it's not like I'm just choosing not to race full time. Like I would never choose that. I'm just doing the best I can with kind of realistically the cards that we've been dealt, and what I think is potential, and what is a potential opportunity, what isn't. And I'm just sometimes a big believer that 10% of something is better than 100% of nothing. So being able to focus on the 500. Next year we're going to target some more of the sports car races as well, like the endurance ones. Hopefully we'll end up doing Daytona, Sebring, Petite as well. Look, if there was an opportunity to go racing full time again, obviously I would jump at it. Until that path becomes a bit clearer and hopefully costs a little less money, then I don't really have a very great answer for that. But also, one of the things I've kept perspective on this year is, although some people might see the broadcasting for me as a step back or plan B or something like that, it's still someone's dream job. And I think keeping that perspective is really important, because it'd be very easy to not appreciate the opportunity that I've got with Fox as well.
And obviously, going into the pit reporting side, you're still in the paddock, all your friends are still sort of there, and you're still speaking to the same people you did last year. But does that sort of make you miss racing a little bit when you're sort of speaking to the drivers who are out on track, or is it a case of, look, you're still involved in the paddock and that's where you want to be?
Well, I think this is what's interesting about the narrative, really, is every time I'm at the track not driving, it's painful. Like every single time. And I don't talk about it on, across social media and honestly, like a lot of podcasts, because this isn't like, I'm not fishing for sympathy, from people. Going back to perspective, I still enjoy what I get to do. And, a lot of people would still trade you in a heartbeat. But for anyone who thinks it's, easy just going to the track, watching your mates race, and you could mix it up with them and stuff like that. Yeah, it's hard. Every weekend there's an element of that is really hard, from practice one to when you're getting on the plane going home. I try to keep perspective that what I'm doing is still cool and still fun, and a lot of people would trade me, but the actual not driving is very difficult to process.
And obviously, as you mentioned earlier, sort of the first priority for you heading into this year was getting an Indy 500 deal secured before you were sort of really thinking about the Fox side of things. So that obviously was your priority. So at which point did you realize, okay, maybe full-time isn't possible, I've got to chase this Indy 500 only? So how was that decision made, and sort of when were the cogs started turning in regards to that?
It's difficult to answer, because ultimately you never really know. However, with the group that we had, put together, there might have been an opportunity to do a few other kind of races here and there, but we felt that to do the Indy 500 with Dreyer was the best spend of money, the best spend of everyone's time and energy and effort, resources, etc. So I can't remember how early it became clear to me that racing full time was going to be tough. It just, it costs a lot of money in sponsorship as well. And some teams right now are in a position where they need funding. It's not a case of, I think if funding wasn't on the table for anybody, then I think we would be racing full time. That's not the case. That's not how motorsport is. It's not how it's always been in the past either. So, I don't lose sleep over it. I just still try and figure out how do we do the bits we want to do. And if we're doing that, then can't really grumble. So, for next year, if I was to look ahead, if we could race full time in a competitive seat, obviously that would always be the dream. If you ended up doing the 500 again and another year with Fox, it would be one that I'd sleep very easy at night and say, thank you very much. This was awesome. Ideally, we would add a few more races into that schedule, whether it's sports cars or some other things here and there. So, that's really the focus right now.
What was it like having the 500 as your kind of sole focus this year? Because I guess it was a period of really knuckling down just with the team, only focusing on this one race. And obviously they are only focusing on that one race as well. So how was that kind of lead up period? What was that like?
It was pretty good, man. Honestly, I was busy still doing everything with Fox. So it wasn't like I was sat there totally twiddling my thumbs. If anything, I thought it was good having that focus and that purpose as well to almost like do the work for the 500, but then do the work somewhere else. So you didn't get completely wrapped up in, any anxiety or anything other than, what are we targeting today? How do we do it? Then what's next? And, Dry are obviously so good at the 500, and this isn't their first rodeo of going through that kind of sequence. So, yeah, I think in the end, their guidance on, timing and tempo and the build up to the race was really good. And if we could do the 500 with them again, I would be really, really happy. They're one of the teams that we're talking to for sure. Hopefully it becomes a little clearer in the next, few weeks with exactly what a path is and what a path could be. But it was good, man. Honestly, like I had so much appreciation and gratitude for doing the 500 this year that I think I said this at the time a lot actually, where I just enjoyed it. And I know that sounds silly to say, but when I look back, I probably didn't enjoy enough of them before, because you're always working towards, what's next and, how do you do this? How do you do that? Where now, when you come at it a little bit older, but also just a bit more rounded, you can just take it for what it is, enjoy it the most you can, and then just try and have the best day you can. And I think without a small mistake on my part that actually had a huge consequence, I do think we were in position to have a really great day, and hopefully we get the opportunity to come back next year and remedy that.
So I was going to ask about that because I did remember you saying that your focus this year really was to enjoy it. So I guess why this year did that perspective maybe shift, that it was not getting all caught up in the month and actually having that time to almost let it sink in? Why was that the case for you this year?
I think it's two reasons really. One, you knew that the 500 was the only thing you had, so it wasn't impacting any championship stuff and therefore any future, things. Every other year that we'd been kind of racing, you're either trying to prove why you should be there or, maybe you're working for a contract extension or something. And then suddenly when you realize that doing the 500 is not a guarantee, because I didn't do it the year before, I think my appreciation for the 500 was through the roof. And I just went into that with happiness and gratitude at my core and just rolled from there.
So how do you reflect on sort of the previous month of May? I know you've obviously had some months to reflect on it now. Obviously, Ryan had quite a good run for the team, but didn't quite work out. So how do you and the rest of the team sort of reflect on how your month of May went?
Well, I think it was a successful one for everyone. To be honest, I'm still a little confused exactly how Ryan got in the position that he did. And I've watched the race back and I'm still a little confused by it, to be honest, because I knew Ryan was fast for sure, but I didn't think he was like about to win the race, because I thought that we and him were very similar all month. Like if in practice he was fifth, I was sixth. If I was seventh, he was eighth. It was very dependent on the day, very very little between us. I think he qualified 27th, I qualified 28th. Like it was like hardly anything on that first stint. We were together as well, and then obviously split strategies. And I saw when he pitted, I was like, what? That seems like a weird time to even do it, which clearly shows you how much I know about strategy. But no, I think, everybody had a strong month, and probably as a team, I think we all could look back at it and go, well, what could have been? I don't think we were in a position to win on the strategy that we were on, in all fairness. And I think Ryan's might have been a little bit, I still need to understand it a bit better, but probably one where we all look back and go, wow, this was a good group of people that could work together really well. Me and Ryan worked together awesome. And in an ideal world, we just run it back, same team, same group of people, just do it again.
What conversations did you have with obviously the Fox team about May and taking that step back? Because I know they dialed you up on pit lane occasionally when you were sat in the car in practice and what have you. But how did you, I guess, balance obviously putting that role kind of on the back burner for that weekend and for that 2 weeks and obviously competing again?
Ultimately, two respectful organisations that Dryer were pretty supportive of what I was doing with Fox throughout the year and still have been. And Fox have been very supportive about the time when I got to pivot and be a driver again. And, nobody overstepped with an ask at any point. I think everyone was happy that I was driving, and obviously Dry were happy that I've got a job outside of just the Indy 500. So it was actually really easy to balance both. We had said a couple times before May even started, if you've got any good ideas, like, let's spitball it, let's see what we can do together. And I thought what we did was a nice balance of being focused, but also being able to tap into both sides of what I'm doing this year. And then obviously before the race started, quick interview with Derek Jeter and A-Rod, which was wild. And, for anyone in the UK who don't know exactly who they are, it'd be a little bit like, interviewing like David Beckham and who else, like another just really famous, like
Andy Murray,
Alan Shearer, or something like that. And it just, they are like some of the greatest players of their sports and just kind of legends, really. So when they said, you want to do that, it was like, yeah, but it wasn't like them saying, hey, you have to do this. It was very conversational. If you want to do it, we'd love for you to do it. And that was just two super respectful organizations that allowed us to do that.
So when you look back at your driving career so far, how do you reflect on it? You obviously started off in Lincoln and moved over to the States, obviously, several years ago. So are you content with how your career's gone, or do you still think there is stuff for you to do? There's unfinished business in your motorsport career?
Well, I think there's a lot of unfinished business. That's why it's hard to give up on just trying to do the 500. I think that we were on a good path, and ultimately I just made the wrong decision to go to Rahal at the time that I did. And that's been difficult to recover from, because when it doesn't go well, it's hard to then get into a good seat, and then, you're not doing a full season again. And, it's just very hard. I would say up to that point, I was pretty content with how everything was generally going. So that's another reason why I don't want to give up fully on driving, because I still feel like there's a lot of talent left to show. I think there's a lot of people still to prove wrong. I think there's some people to prove right, for the people who have supported me, and show them why we should be still trying to do this. So, I mean, if you were looking at it from like more of a blanket statement, yes, coming from, Bassingham in the UK, which is a small village outside of a small town of Lincoln, yeah, I'm proud of what I've done, realistically. However, from purely a how do I wish my career had gone, then no, I haven't achieved what I want to achieve yet.
I guess just to follow up on what you said, obviously after making that decision to move to RLL, where and I guess why did you feel things went a little bit downhill with that move?
Well, I mean, honestly, man, we could probably do a whole podcast chat just on that alone. And, Graham's a great friend of mine. I got a lot of respect for him and a lot of respect for people at the team still. It just didn't work out. I mean, to pinpoint exactly what it was would, take probably a little bit more time than probably what we've got left available today. And, same sort of question for why did you make the move? So not why did it go bad, but also how did you end up there? And ultimately all I've learned from it, is decision-making process and being able to like change a little bit of that. And then, after that, if you see something starting to go a way that you don't, then just kind of seeing the signs for it sooner and being able to make some changes. So ultimately, I think, again, if you look at it from this perspective, doing the 500 with a really good team like Dreyer, for me right now is like having the opportunity to properly compete and try and showcase what I can do would be better for me than trying just to get into a car that you don't feel confident you can achieve week in, week out. Because I think because I feel like there's low-hanging fruit and still an unfinished business, I'd rather put myself in a good position to do that than continue a narrative of it's been difficult to recover since then. Because actually, after the 500, it felt like my stock was climbing up again, and the momentum around what we were doing was high. So I feel like we're getting back to the right path.
I know one of the big moments of your career, I guess it was bittersweet at the time, but the 500 in 23, and I don't know whether you've kind of watched back the clip of that lap and everything that happened there, but I guess what are your reflections on just that moment then? Because that's
on
obviously
bump day.
on bump day.
Well, I mean, you get, probably a part of the Indy 500 history that you don't want to be a part of, right? And that's bump day. Unfortunately, as a team, we weren't good. Of the 4 cars that were competing in bump day last year or in 2023, it was me, Christian, and Graham. Man, I was just grateful to make the race. I've got people who have supported me for a long time, a whole set of sponsors and mechanics and everything. And it is bittersweet because Graham is a great friend of mine, and obviously we wanted to both make the race, but at that time, I wanted to make it for myself as well. So it was a tough one. I think that reality for the team not being competitive was probably the biggest takeaway. That realistically we shouldn't even be in that situation. But when I see it, I mean, I'm proud of the way that we still fought through the entire day and eventually made it happen by the tiniest of margins, it feels like. So it's still a wild day. Still gives me goosebumps. I don't watch it like a lot. However, I think it also makes me appreciate the 500 and having a good seat, because the stress of that day will take years off your life, I reckon.
So looking forward to next year, obviously I know you said you're working on Indy 500 return, you're open to various different things. So is there any sort of plan in mind currently, or is it sort of wait for the opportunities to come and you'll work it out as it goes along?
No, I've got a plan.
Fine. We'll take that. Fine. Cool. See you at the 500 next year, I hope, is what we'll say.
I hope so too. I mean, I know what I want to do. I think I know the action plans to doing it. So obviously, not all those decisions are in my control because I'm not the decision maker. But I know what I want us to achieve and what I want us to do.
Does that include wanting to continue the TV stuff? Should it fit in?
Absolutely. Cool. Yeah. I mean, Fox have an option, for me and my services for next year if they want it. So, I mean, we hope they take it.
Definitely. Need more nicknames on the show. So.
Yeah. Well, I mean, that could become its own little sequence.
We'll round it off with our more fun set of questions. Obviously, the Football League season has started again. So, what are your hopes for Lincoln City this season?
Promotion, dude. Let's go.
Good start, wasn't it? I think they won at the weekend.
Yeah, beat Reading 2-0. That was good. That's how you want to start the season, to be honest with you. Obviously, pretty good win. I don't know if we beat Reading last year or not. I think I was at one of those games. But either way, I mean, I think it was a strong start. And I say promotion just because I'm a competitive person. Obviously, I want all the teams that I cheer for, to do well. I still feel like, if anything, being in the top half of the table, another year of stability and keep building, and then maybe next season go for promotion is probably more of a sensible play. But obviously, I just want to see our team win. So,
obviously, in the Fox broadcast, we have a lot of British presence, which we very much like on this podcast. With you and Will, makes them about 33% of the team we see are British, which is fantastic. Any British slang been introduced to the Fox team? Can we hear some more British quotes coming soon?
There has been. We've been working on it. We've been dropping them in. I think Kevin sometimes looks at us like we're just like, what the hell are you talking about? But yeah, I mean, that would be good. I would enjoy that. And I think, if anything, because Will's so fresh in America, that his slang is probably even stronger than mine at the minute. I probably need a trip to the UK to refresh myself.
I think everyone loved on Twitter Callum Mylott saying Muppets, and that's a very usual word
Muppets,
here. So
yeah, when did he say that? Toronto?
Yes, Toronto.
Yeah, I thought it was. Yeah, he seemed a bit mad.
You've obviously been in the States for about a decade now, so you're obviously quite familiar with it. Is there anything you sort of miss over there which we've got in the UK?
Yeah, I miss our bacon.
Yes,
I miss our sausages. I miss chocolate digestives and hobnobs.
Nice.
They rule supreme. I miss a pork pie.
All the fantastic delicacies which everyone else internationally finds horrible.
Yes. Yeah, they're basically, I actually can make sausage rolls, so I don't miss them because I just make them.
Oh, nice. That sounds cool.
Yeah.
So something else we like to do on the podcast for our driver guests is to ask you for your two favorite songs, or just 2 songs in general, to for us to add to our driver playlist. So do you have 2 songs?
Oh, geez.
You're allowed to look at your Spotify. Everybody does.
Yeah, I'm going to say I might have to pull up my Spotify. Are we talking about just like in general? We're just talking about like what I'm listening to now.
Anything. 2 songs you'd like to add?
Oh, wow. I might have to pull up my Spotify in a second.
Absolutely. Alex Palou did. So
did he? Oh,
if he does it, I think you deserve to do it.
You know what? If the champ can do it, I know I can do it. Let's have a look here. Let's get turned around.
We've had some wild suggestions.
So on my repeats right now, we've got Where the Wild Things Are, Luke Combs.
Nice. That is a good selection.
Yeah, banger. And then this other one, Driving to Nowhere, Nathan Evans.
Not heard of that one, but
we have a lot of country on this playlist. So
he's not. He's more of like.
Well, I've seen more Luke Combs sort of thing.
Yeah, Luke Combs was definitely a bit country. It depends. That was just on my on my repeat.
I like that.
I'm trying to think what else you could throw in there. I mean, honestly, Aussie at the minute, you probably could hit up some Crazy Train. I'm not a big music person to like get psyched. Like I've never been music to get psyched that way.
Interesting.
Just put the Fox Sports IndyCar theme in there. Well, it's also the NASCAR theme, it's just the Fox Sports theme, isn't it? So
yeah, I mean, you could go like Rocky Eye of the Tiger if you're looking for like sporty, like get fired up. You know who's a big music, at least he used to be, is Alex Lynn.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, he's the person you should ask about music.
We'll refer it to our endurance podcast.
yeah, there you go. Yeah.
So, just as a final word, we obviously had some awesome news this week about Fox investing 1/3 into IndyCar and Penske Entertainment, and hopefully we'll see you on the broadcast for a long time in the future. So, sort of, how exciting is this Fox project overall, and where do you see sort of Fox taking IndyCar in the next couple of years?
It's a good question. I think everyone should be super excited about what that means for the series, the growth of the series, but also what Fox can bring to the table. I was in California for Laguna and went to see the Fox studio before we ended up making the drive down to Monterey. And they've got some really cool things, man, that they could bring to a full presentation and a full broadcast. So without oversharing or undersharing, I think everyone should just be really excited about this partnership. I know I am. And that's also another, thing as you look at where you're at now, and it feels like a good place to be with, especially with everything that's been announced and, the way that it feels like the series could go. So we'll kind of play it by ear, man. But overall, I thought that was a really positive thing for everybody.
Excellent. Now, Jack, that's what we've got for you. Thanks for your time. Hopefully you've learned a lot about various different topics today, and you're obviously welcome back anytime on the podcast. So look forward to the end of the season, 3 rounds to go, and hopefully we'll see you back in IndyCar next year.
Awesome. Thank you, lads. Thanks for the time.